Good morning and welcome to Stamping Wishes. This is Sheila Myers coming to you on a Saturday morning, and I'm going to call this Simple Saturday since we're going to do just a very simple but I think very vintage and beautiful card to send to somebody. Alright, stay tuned because at the end of the video I'm going to do a tip on filling a stamp pad. I was requested by one of my customers to do that video, so I'm going to do it at the very end of the this card making. Alright, so what you're going to need for this card, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set it aside. I'll give you a hint to the inside. Isn't that gorgeous? Alright, so let's go ahead and set this one aside and bring in our pieces that we're going to need. You're going to need very vanilla, and you want that cut at 5.5 by 8. And set that aside for a second, and then you're going to need a piece of crumb cake, which is for the inside, and you're going to cut that at 4 by 5.25. And just to save time before the video, I went ahead and cut this out. Now, as you can see, when I cut this out, I set the plate, which is this one here, the die, a little bit underneath here, the tip. So I wanted to stay connected at this side so that I could fit it back in like a puzzle. So you're going to use your delicate edges, which I just love these. Alright, we're going to use the Stylish Shapes. And what I did was to cut out my greeting using this one right here. And for your stamps, we're using the Speedy Recovery. I'm using this for the inside, and I use this one for the outside. Then we're going to be using for the main front of it, the Daisy Garden, which is one of your large one-piece stamps. So let's go ahead and set this aside for a second. We'll come back to it in a minute. And go ahead and bring in our big stamp, and I've already got it set up and ready to stamp. Alright, for this one I'm going to be using soft suede for the impression. So we're going to take our soft suede and we're going to go ahead and apply the ink. And using a large stamp like this, you always want to be able to use the stamp upside down or the stamp pad upside down to stamp. That way you can see where all of your ink is. Make sure your edges, like I just did, are cleaned off because you don't want that to smudge onto your beautiful imprint. So let's go ahead and do this, and I'm gonna, when I come down, because we want all that ink to have the time to go into the paper. So I'm going to stand up so I can put a little bit more pressure on it. And I think we can re-ink that one more time. I'm a little bit pale there, so let's go ahead and do that. As you can tell, this ink pad is close to being a need for some re-inking, so we're going to do that at the end of the video because I like the time for the pad to absorb that ink and not use it immediately afterwards. Okay, so go ahead and give time for that ink to transfer over into the paper. Let's see how beautiful. That's perfect. Alright, so let's go ahead and take this out. And what I used, because again, I wanted to keep this simple but elegant, and I was feeling kind of on the vintage side. Let me go ahead and close this up. And what I'm going to do first is, before we color to give that ink time to set, I'm going to do my brush sponging onto the card. And we're going to use the crumb cake, not the soft suede. The soft suede's a little bit harsh to me when you're wanting a light, soft effect. And that's what I'm looking for, just a little bit of edging around the edges. So we're going to go ahead. Remember, pat your color off before you enter your card area to make sure you don't get any blobs. And you just want to lightly go around the edges of the card so you can leave that, it gives it an antiquing effect, and so we want to leave it light in the center of the card. So you don't want to go very far on this, just the very edges and into the corners. And while we have this ink out, we're going to go ahead and do the inside piece. Okay, I like that. Okay, let's set that aside. We're going to bring in the inside piece. And let's go ahead and antique just the edges of this. Okay, let's set this aside. And again, we're just wanting the very edges done. I don't want the whole piece to be aged, just the edging. And it's hard to tell if you've gotten enough or not, but you'll definitely see the contrasting. And something else I wanted to show you that you can see while I'm doing this on this white paper, this would make a beautiful masking piece for the inside of a card, or even a pattern for the outside of the card. When I move this, you'll see what I mean. See how you start getting those flowers? So that you can see would make a gorgeous card as well. Okay, I like, maybe we can do just a tad more right in this area here. I think that's it. All right, let's go ahead and put our crumb cake away. And to get all of our stamping done, I'm going to go ahead and bring this back over. And you do need to be careful with this because it's delicate. It only has a little piece that it's hanging by a thread, you could say. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my inside greeting. And again, this one is from that Speedy Recovery stamp set. And let's see if I can do this without getting my head in it. Beautiful. All right, so now we're done with our inks, and we are ready. We'll set that aside, set this aside, and let's go ahead and work on our coloring now. And all I've used is the Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencils. I'm using the white, the Whisper White, and then the yellow, which is the Daffodil Light, I believe. I've got I labeled over the color so it's not showing up. But anyway, this is the lighter and the brighter, so that's the Daffodil Delight. And we're going to go in, and all I'm going to do is color very strongly on the tips of this with the coloring. I want to let it kind of fade out as I come towards the center of it. And we're going to do this one flower, and then I'm going to speed the camera up because you don't need to watch me do it all. Now, as you notice in my card, I didn't color the green. I kind of like just the plain, just monochromatic type coloring, which was just using two colors, which was our yellow and our white for the center. So this is what we're going to do to all the flowers. So I'm going to speed it up now. Alright, so I've got the coloring done. Another technique that would go really well with this card is the whitewash technique, and that you would use your white craft ink that Stampin' Up! Sells, and you can do one of two things. You can use your block and go onto the ink pad to get off just what you need, and use one of your blending brushes, and you can just blend that white into it and change the different tones of white. But I wanted to do something with the watercolor pencils, and that's why I decided to use this that we've used today. So didn't that come out pretty? Very simple but pretty. Alright, this is unfortunately a retired ribbon, but I did want to use it. It was the jute band. It was one of my favorites Stampin' Up! Sold. And I bought me a couple of rolls of it because I do love to use it on the vintage type cards. Alright, I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal just to run a strip across here to give us some effects of sticking it on without it moving around on us. I'm going to move it at probably about right there. Okay, and then I'll bring this across. And I like to rerun it back over here just to make sure it stays down and it adheres to the card when we go to do it. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring our card in. I touched the ink there just a minute ago, so you know what? No, because we're going to have an edge. I'll go ahead and leave it on the inside. So we're going to fold this in half. If you were scoring, you would want to do it at 4 1/4. But I find it just as easy to use my bone folder. And then we'll apply this to the front. Alright, okay. Let's go ahead and put the inside and then we'll finish up the outside of it. Let's go ahead and put this where it's going to be going here. So what I like to do is to kind of do what I call a dry fit. I'm going to leave this on where I believe this is going to look best. And once I've gotten my edges where I like them, like so, I'm going to go ahead and go in here and use a little bit of the liquid glue, and I've got it in a small bottle, so I can just go in here and strategically put it in a few spots that it will hold it down and won't pop up on me. I hope y'all Saturday's going great. I know here it's going good. It's a little cloudy, which is nice because here in Texas we've been having extreme heat. I think we're over 60 days now, the over hundreds, and I'm about ready for fall to jump in here and at least cool us down into the 90s. We don't have much of a fall, unfortunately. I love the 4 seasons, but we don't get them here. Alright, so now we're going to put this back where I had wanted it. Well, I should have said leave well enough alone when I had that mat over it. That didn't help with moving it. Okay, so now we're going to go in here, and I'm kind of lining it to the left side of this is where I want to put it. Then I'll pull this up and put my adhesive on it. Okay, and then for this side over here, I'm going to go ahead and come back with my liquid glue again because it's such a small area. Alright, so let's go ahead and lay that in, and we will wrap this card up. As you can see, it was simple, but who wouldn't love to get this card when they're feeling a little under the weather? Alright, there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to crease that just a little bit more to bring that edging down. There we go. And I'm going to bring in some of my dimensionals, and I always say never waste any of them because as you can see I'm starting to run out of this sheet, but these edges really work well for propping pieces up like this, and that way you don't waste any of them. Love our dimensionals, and we want to center that about in the center of this. There we go, and here we go. Isn't that beautiful? Simple but elegant. Alright, so as I promised, we're going to do a tidbit here. I need to fill my soft suede. And to refill your stamp pad, you want to make sure if you have your new ink pads that you're using the new re-inkers. I had to virtually kind of, as I changed over pads, I got rid of the other re-inkers to make sure that I did not use the wrong one because it's a different ink formula. But as you can see, I'm just kind of drizzling in, letting the pad soak some of it in. Now what I'm going to do is take a plastic spoon or anything you have that you can smooth that color in. You want to go in and smooth it in. Make sure that it goes all the way down into your ink pad. You just keep doing that until you know that it's all absorbed in there. And then I just take and wipe off that ink onto a cloth, and I can reuse it the next time. Alright, well that was my little tidbit for this video, and until next time, happy stamping and God bless.